A fleet of alien warships just appeared over Earth. Their leader demands our surrender. But there's just one problem. Captain Jason Riker doesn't do surrender. And when the Akar Dominion threatens humanity, they have no idea. We were ready for them. A battle of wits, power, and the ultimate bluff begins, but can the humans outplay an empire? Or is this just the beginning of a bigger war? Find out in today's thrilling sci-fi story. They thought they won, until the real enemy arrived. Story begins as the command center of Icarus Station pulsed with quiet efficiency, a symphony of hushed voices, beeping monitors, and the occasional crackle of a comms channel. Through the vast observation window, Earth rotated below, serene and unaware of the storm brewing above. Captain Jason Riker leaned back in his chair, legs casually crossed, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee. His uniform was slightly unbuttoned at the collar, a stark contrast to the tense expressions of his bridge crew. He glanced at Lieutenant Ava Mitchell, who was hunched over her console, brow furrowed. "Tell me that alarm is just another false proximity warning," Riker said, lifting the cup to his lips. Ava didn't answer. Instead, her fingers flew across the controls, her blue eyes fixed on the data streaming in. "Lieutenant," Riker prompted again. She swallowed. "Sir, we have company." The moment she said it, the overhead lights dimmed slightly, and the station's AI switched to red alert. A deep, rhythmic hum reverberated through the station's hull as defensive systems went online. Riker turned his gaze to the viewport, where the stars stretched endlessly into the void. Then something shifted. A dark mass emerged from the abyss, blotting out entire constellations. "Magnify," he ordered. The display zoomed in, and the bridge fell silent. A massive Akar Dominion warship loomed before them, its angular, jet-black hull covered in shimmering energy conduits. Rows of heavy plasma turrets lined its surface, their barrels humming with restrained devastation. The ship was 3 times the size of Icarus Station, and yet it moved with the predatory grace of a creature that had done this countless times before. Ava's voice was barely above a whisper. "It's the Judicator, Admiral Crush's flagship." The name alone sent an uneasy ripple through the crew. Crush, the butcher of Endera, 6. The warlord who left civilizations in ruin. For the first time, Riker lowered his coffee cup. "Well," he muttered, exhaling. "Guess we finally got their attention." A sharp ping echoed across the bridge. "They're hailing us," Ava said, her hands tightening into fists. Riker let the tension build for a moment, rolling his shoulders like he was shaking off a bad dream. Then, with deliberate nonchalance, he gestured toward the main screen. "Put them on." The screen flickered to life. A monstrous figure filled the display, Admiral Crush. His exoskeletal body gleamed under the dim red glow of his warship's bridge. Black, chitinous armor plated his massive form, while twin mandibles twitched in what might have been amusement or hunger. His voice was a deep, guttural rasp. "Humans." Riker smirked. "Bug guy." Ava nearly choked. Someone in the back let out a muffled snort. Crush's eyes narrowed. "You will surrender." His words came slow, deliberate, as if speaking to something beneath his notice. "Your species has no place in the Dominion. Submit, and you will be granted servitude. Resist, and you will be eradicated." Riker tilted his head, feigning deep thought. Surrender or perish? Wow. He rubbed his chin. "Do you guys always go for the dramatic villain monologue? Or is today special?" Silence. A few of the bridge officers exchanged nervous glances. Crush's mandibles twitched. "You mock us." "Oh, absolutely," Riker shot back. "See, Admiral Bugface, we did our homework. You guys? Big on discipline, zero sense of humor. But here's the thing. You're not the first would-be conquerors we've dealt with. Hell, you're not even the first this century." Crush leaned forward slightly, claws tapping against his command throne. Your planet is defenseless. Your orbital defenses are primitive. Your warships are outdated relics. Riker took a slow sip of his coffee. And yet, he said, lowering the mug, you're still talking. A flicker of hesitation passed through Crush's predatory gaze. Ava's console beeped again, a separate transmission coming through. She glanced at the message and then at Riker, barely able to suppress the grin tugging at her lips. Captain, we've got something. Riker didn't take his eyes off Crush. Patch it through. A second feed appeared in the corner of the screen, revealing a grinning engineer aboard an unseen vessel. He held up a small, metallic disc, spinning it between his fingers. Hey, sorry to interrupt, the engineer said, far too casually. But we found another one. Crush's mandibles twitched. The engineer smirked. Admiral, this is getting embarrassing. Your cloak probes? We've been finding them all over the system. Your stealth tech? Not as stealthy as you think. Riker's smirk widened, and here I was, worried this was going to be a fair fight. For the first time, Crush's expression flickered with something unfamiliar. Doubt. The bridge of Icarus Station buzzed with quiet intensity, but beneath the surface, tension coiled like a spring. The image of Admiral Crush still filled the main display, his exoskeletal form radiating menace. Yet, for the first time in recorded history, the warlord of the Icar Dominion hesitated. Riker leaned forward in his chair, resting his elbows on the armrests. Cat got your mandibles, Admiral? Crush's dark, reflective eyes narrowed. You believe you have an advantage, he rasped, his voice layered with contempt. You do not. Ava's console beeped rapidly, a warning flashing across her screen. She glanced down and immediately stiffened. Sir, she said, barely able to keep her voice steady. Dominion reinforcements just entered the system. For more warships, asterisk. A low murmur swept across the bridge. The tension thickened like smoke. Riker exhaled, tapping a finger against his armrest. That's a whole lot of backup for one little station. Crush's mandibles twitched, a grotesque approximation of a smirk. You misunderstand, human. This is not a battle. This is an execution. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. Even Riker felt the weight of it pressing down. Ava's fingers flew over her console. Captain, they're charging weapons. Riker's jaw tightened. He looked at the viewport. The massive Dominion warship Judicator remained motionless, but the reinforcements had taken strategic positions, forming a perimeter. They were cutting off escape routes. Crush let out a slow, guttural growl. You should have surrendered when you had the chance. Riker let out a sharp breath. No time left. All right, kids, he said, straightening up. Time to stop playing nice. Tactical. Arm the pulse cannons. Bring shields to full power. And someone get me a goddamn miracle. The bridge erupted into movement. Officers relayed orders. Systems activated. Alarms blared. Icarus Station had never been designed as a frontline warship, but it wasn't defenseless either. Ava's voice cut through the chaos. Sir, incoming transmission from the Valkyrie. Riker's lips curved into a grin. Now, there's my miracle. Put them through. The screen split, and the image of Commander Elias Vance filled half the display. Dark-skinned, grizzled, and wearing a flight suit that looked like it had seen one too many dogfights, Vance was a legend among the Federation's elite pilots. His smirk was pure adrenaline. Miss me? Riker let out a chuckle. Like a hole in the hull. Please tell me you brought the cavalry. Vance's smirk widened. Better. We brought a surprise. Ava's console flashed with new readings. Whatever Vance meant, it was big. Crush, still watching, tilted his head slightly. What trickery is this? Vance's grin didn't falter. You'll find out soon enough, Bugsy. The bridge crew barely had a moment to process before the proximity alarm shrieked. Something massive was decloaking behind Icarus Station. Ava gasped. Sir, that's a Dreadnought-class battle cruiser. Riker's grin turned sharp. Now that's how you make an entrance. Crush's expression darkened. Impossible. Vance leaned in, his voice a razor-sharp whisper. Guess what, Admiral? This fight isn't going to be as one-sided as you thought. Outside the station, the void lit up with energy signatures. The battle was about to begin. The black void of space erupted into chaos. Energy bolts streaked across the battlefield, illuminating the hulls of warships as Icarus Station braced for impact. The newly arrived dreadnought, a Federation battlecruiser named Titan's Wrath, roared to life, its cannons charging with a low, ominous hum. On the bridge, Riker gripped the armrests of his chair as the entire station shuddered under the force of the Dominion's opening salvo. Red lights flickered and alarms blared. Shields holding, Ava called out, her hands flying over the console. But that was just a warning shot. They're preparing a full-scale barrage. Riker exhaled sharply, his gaze flicking toward the screen. The Judicator and its reinforcements had repositioned, their weapons glowing with lethal intent. Comms, give me Vance. The screen split again, showing Commander Elias Vance in the cockpit of the Valkyrie. Even through the static interference, his smirk was unwavering. You rang? Riker wasted no time. We need a window. Take some heat off us so we can reposition the station's turrets. Vance gave a quick nod. Copy that. Hang Dai. The transmission cut out, and a moment later, Valkyrie, along with a squadron of Federation fighters, shot forward at breakneck speed. The sleek starfighters wove through the Dominion fleet, unleashing a relentless barrage of laser fire. The Judicator's shields flared as it absorbed the hits, but it was enough to shift their focus. Ava's console beeped. They're redirecting their fire toward the fighters. Then let's not waste this chance, Riker snapped. Tactical, bring our rail cannons online and target their lead warship's propulsion system. If we can cripple it, we can level the playing field. Aye, Captain. The station's massive cannons adjusted, locking onto the nearest Dominion cruiser. A second later, they unleashed hell. A thunderous boom echoed through the station as the rail slugs tore through the void at unimaginable speeds. The impact was immediate. The Dominion warship lurched violently as explosions ripped through its rear thrusters. Fire and debris spilled into the blackness, and within seconds, the once formidable vessel began drifting helplessly. On the screen, Admiral Crush's mandibles twitched with fury. You dare strike us down like insects? His voice was a guttural snarl. Very well. No more warnings. Ava's eyes widened as new readings flooded her screen. Sir, the Judicator is powering up its primary weapon. Riker's stomach tightened. He knew what that meant. The Dominion's planet cracker cannon was capable of obliterating entire colonies. If it fired at Icarus Station, they wouldn't just lose the battle. They'd be reduced to dust. His mind raced. We need to disable that cannon before it reaches full charge. Vance's voice crackled over the comms. Leave that to me. Before Riker could ask what he meant, the Valkyrie and its squadron broke formation, diving straight toward the Judicator at full throttle. Ava inhaled sharply. He's going for the cannon's energy core. She turned to Riker, panic flickering in her eyes. If he doesn't pull up in time, Riker clenched his jaw. He knows the risk. The bridge fell silent as the Valkyrie closed in, dodging a barrage of defensive fire. The moment of impact was seconds away. The fate of the battle hung in the balance. The Valkyrie shot forward like a comet, dodging Dominion turrets with precise, razor-sharp movements. Inside the cockpit, Commander Elias Vance gripped the controls, his knuckles white. The Judicator's planet cracker cannon was nearly charged. The energy buildup vibrated through space like a ticking time bomb. Vance, you have seconds before that thing fires. Riker's voice crackled through the comms. Vance smirked. More than enough. With a sharp pull, he sent the Valkyrie into a steep roll, weaving between the Judicator's defenses. Fire rained around him, but he was locked onto one thing: the cannon's energy core, glowing like a molten sun beneath the ship's thick plating. "Target locked," his co-pilot, Sienna, called out. "You sure about this?" Vance's grin didn't waver. Not even a little. He slammed the thrusters. The ship lurched forward at full speed, heading straight for the cannon's exposed cooling vents. The Judicator's defenses went into overdrive. Turrets spun and fired, plasma rounds streaking past the Valkyrie. One shot clipped the side, sending sparks through the cockpit. Sienna cursed. "We're hit. Nothing fatal, but shields are failing." Vance didn't ease up. "Then we don't get hit again." He adjusted his trajectory, pushing the engines past safety limits. The Valkyrie roared toward the core. Inside Icarus Station, Riker held his breath as he watched the fighter's trajectory. Ava's screen flashed red. "Sir, the cannon's charge is at 90%. "Come on, Vance," Riker muttered. Then, impact. The Valkyrie fired a single torpedo straight into the Judicator's energy core. A brilliant explosion erupted, sending shockwaves rippling across space. The Judicator trembled. Sparks burst from its structure. The once formidable cannon cracked and buckled, energy wildly surging through the ship's hull. Inside, Dominion crew members screamed as fires engulfed their stations. Admiral Crush slammed his fist against his console. "Restore power to the weapons." A bridge officer turned to him, panic in his eyes. "It's too late, sir. The core is destabilizing." Crush's mandibles twitched. His victory was slipping away. On Icarus Station, Ava clapped her hands together. "Direct hit. The Judicator's primary weapon is offline." A cheer rippled through the bridge, but Riker didn't celebrate just yet. "Where's Vance?" Ava's fingers danced over the controls. The readings were erratic. The explosion had created a shockwave so strong, it had sent the Valkyrie spinning out of control. "His ship's not responding." Ava's voice was tight. Riker's heart pounded. "Open a channel." Static filled the comms. Then, Vance's voice, strained and breathless. "Still here." That was intense. Sienna coughed in the background. "Remind me to yell at you when we land." A wave of relief flooded the bridge. But before anyone could celebrate, Ava's screen flashed again. "Sir, the Judicator is still operational. It's heading straight for us." Riker gritted his teeth. It wasn't over yet. The Judicator was wounded, but far from dead. Its massive engines roared to life, propelling the warship toward Icarus Station with relentless determination. Fires still raged along its hull, and chunks of debris drifted from the massive fractures in its structure, yet its remaining weaponry lit up with renewed aggression. Inside the station, Riker gripped the console, his pulse hammering. That ship should be falling apart. What the hell is keeping it moving? Ava's fingers flew across the terminal, scanning for answers. The Dominion must have activated emergency stabilizers. The ship's holding together with sheer force, but it's on borrowed time. Riker wasn't comforted. Borrowed time is still enough time to kill us. The Judicator's remaining plasma batteries unleashed a volley of fire. Blazing projectiles streaked through space, heading straight for the station. "Brace for impact," Ava shouted. A thunderous shockwave ripped through Icarus as the first barrage landed. The station lurched violently, sending officers sprawling to the floor. Sirens wailed, and emergency red lights bathed the control room in an eerie glow. Riker pushed himself up, his ears ringing. "Status." Ava coughed, trying to stabilize her screen. Shields took a massive hit, down to 23%. Another round like that, and we're exposed. Riker gritted his teeth. "We need to end this. Now." Through the viewport, the Judicator loomed, inching closer. Its massive hull cast a shadow over the battlefield, a predator moving in for the final strike. Then, Vance's voice crackled over the comms. "Hope you didn't think I was done." The Valkyrie burst through the debris field, its engines glowing white-hot. Despite its damaged exterior, the ship moved like a ghost, evading turret fire with deadly precision. Sienna's voice came in, sharp and determined. We've still got enough firepower to make them hurt. Riker's mind raced. They needed a decisive strike, something that would finally bring the Judicator down. His eyes landed on the ship's weakened central structure. Ava, confirm. How unstable is their core? Ava's hands blurred over the controls. It's holding, but just barely. If we could deliver one more concentrated hit, it could cause a full meltdown. Riker turned to the comms. Vance, you thinking what I'm thinking? Vance chuckled. If you're thinking about flying straight into hell, then yeah. The Valkyrie dived toward the Judicator's underbelly, weaving through its failing defenses. Turrets struggled to track them, their damaged systems unable to keep up. Sienna locked onto the core's fragile casing. Target acquired. Vance's grip tightened on the controls. Let's finish this. The Judicator's plasma cannons powered up, ready to unleash a final blast on Icarus Station. Riker held his breath. They had one shot, and it had to count. The Valkyrie tore through the battlefield like a comet, weaving between the Judicator's failing defenses. Explosions rippled along the Dominion warship's hull as its broken turrets attempted to lock on, but Sienna's piloting was too fast, too unpredictable. The Judicator was wounded, desperate. Its final attack was imminent. Inside Icarus Station, Riker's hands were white-knuckled on the console. Valkyrie, you need to hit that core before it fires on us. We won't survive another direct hit. Ava's fingers flew over the terminal, scanning energy signatures. Their main cannon is at 90% charge. If they fire now, we're done. Riker turned back to the viewport. The massive warship loomed, glowing with lethal energy. Vance, you've got seconds, not minutes. Vance's voice came through the comms, laced with adrenaline. Yeah. No pressure or anything. The Valkyrie banked hard, diving low toward the Judicator's core chamber, a heavily reinforced section beneath the warship. Its plating was cracked, barely holding together from the previous assault. Sienna locked in the targeting system. Core in sight, preparing to fire. The Valkyrie's weapons charged, humming with power. Inside the Judicator, alarms shrieked as Dominion officers scrambled to stop the inevitable. The ship's captain, blood trailing down his temple, slammed his fist against the emergency override panel. Divert all power to shields. We have to protect the core. The order came too late. Sienna pulled the trigger. A blinding beam of energy lanced from the Valkyrie, cutting through the weakened hull like a blade through paper. The blast punched deep, slamming into the unstable core with a violent, shuddering impact. For a moment, there was silence. Then, a chain reaction erupted. The Judicator's entire midsection buckled, a shockwave rippling outward as its systems overloaded at once. Fires burst from every fracture, consuming entire decks. Vance's voice yelled through comms. Pulling out. That thing's about to go critical. The Valkyrie veered off, engines burning at full throttle. Behind them, the Judicator's core detonated, unleashing a colossal explosion that ripped the ship apart from the inside out. Inside Icarus Station, Riker watched in stunned silence as the warship, once a terrifying symbol of the Dominion's power, was torn to pieces in a swirling inferno. Shockwaves rocked the station, rattling the very walls. Then just like that, it was over. Ava let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. We did it. Riker's pulse pounded in his ears. He opened the comms, voice thick with relief. Vance, Sienna, you're both clear. The Dominion's done. On screen, the Valkyrie slowed, turning back toward the battlefield. The station was still standing. Vance exhaled, exhaustion creeping into his voice. Hell of a fight. Sienna's voice was softer. But it's not over yet, is it? Riker knew she was right. The battle might be won, but the war was far from finished. Here is the story ends. If you enjoyed, and want to watch more thrilling sci-fi adventures, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Dive into epic battles, explore distant galaxies, and join brave heroes as they fight for survival against impossible odds. Let us know in comments if you want next chapters to publish soon. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and become part of the journey. Together, we'll keep the last light burning. Subscribe now and let the adventure continue.